Hello, I'm Magnus Ditlev.
And I'm Daniel Baekkegard, and you're listening to the MX Endurance Podcast.
Welcome back to another episode of the MX Endurance Podcast, where we look at everything that's been happening in the world of endurance sports. My name is Tim Ford, and I'm joined by the penultimate legend, the sexy shepherdess, the undisputed sexiest voice in triathlon, James Bale, back from Girona. How you going, Jimbo?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, mate. It was I've done a lot of traveling the last few days, here, there, and everywhere. But back in the UK and back home, drove through Storm Dudley last night to get back here. Had some dinner with somebody on the way, and here I am. How are you, man?
Storm Dudley. Yeah. Let's unpack this. What's Storm Dudley? Is this a place? Is it?
No. Every time we have a storm, they give it a name, and it's an alphabetical thing, and they're on D. So Dudley.
Every time you have a storm, because that's like 6 a day, isn't it? So like,
I think
it sounds like.
I think there's a threshold, isn't there, where it's called a storm. And last night managed it. My Tesla was getting blown all over the road. How are you, man? You all right?
I'm good. I actually had a win today, mate. I had a win. My coaches had me do some 1,500 meter time trials in the pool, and I did one, I don't know, like a month ago, and I did another one today. And my average pace was 3 seconds per 100 meters faster. So that was good.
There you go.
I was really happy with that, actually. I wasn't very happy doing it because it's a lot of laps. Trying to keep count while swimming hard was not a lot of fun. And then obviously my brain was on the podcast thinking about it. Got to make sure that content is red hot tonight. Making sure that we always deliver the goods. It will be, because you are sitting down with two people tonight, two Danish powerhouses, Daniel Baekkegard and Magnus Ditlev, for a bit of a one-on-one interview, following up with their piece of content they did for the PTO. That's part of our thing this year, where we're trying to get on more athletes together rather than just the solo interviews, for a bit of a difference. But that'll be dropped in a little bit later. But James, before we get to that, this podcast is the official podcast of MX Endurance, the world's premier endurance sports community, created by four-time world champion Chris McCormack. Jimbo, you've been with us for ages. You talk about the camp every week. What's something other than the camp you like about
Oh, shit. I was going to talk about the camp again. Because I know you sent me through the only because you sent me through the document, didn't you, the proof? And I seen all the details of all the stuff we're going to do and all the information you put in it. So the camp information is coming, and you're going to release it in the next few days, aren't you? So what else do I like about MX Endurance, mate? I like the fact that when I'm in Girona and I'm in cafes and I'm talking to people within triathlon, we talk about the podcast and we talk about MX Endurance, and our reach is far and wide.
I have this habit now when somebody goes, "Oh, I listen to the podcast." I'm like, "Oh, sorry about that." It's like my default answer. It's like, "Oh, sorry about that." I know I get told I swear too much, but no, you're in Girona. I know we don't talk so much about ourselves, but Girona's a bit of a triathlon hub. How was Girona, mate? Tell us about it.
It was really good, man. Arrived there on the Friday. Hooked up with Joe Skipper, who was staying with a bunch of his mates and doing some training there. So went and saw them, had a drink and some dinner with them, and then we had a videographer there doing some sterling work, capturing Joe's weekend. So spent some time with them. Did some mooching around Girona. Girona's very pretty. Had a coffee in Fredino's Cafe. Had some lunch in Fredino's Cafe, actually. Had a chat with Emma. She was lovely. Bought you a bag
of coffee. Friend of the podcast, mate.
Bought you a bag of coffee, which I'm going to send over post haste. And and then I just, spent some time pro cyclist spotting, as you can imagine. I saw the Education First boys out. I saw the Israel Startup Nation boys out. It was quite, for the second biggest cycling fan in the world, mate. It was quite the trip. Girona's pretty though. The old town. Get out there. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful place.
I'm keen to go. Actually, I think that'd be a great spot. You were constantly like, "Dude, you got to get here." I'm like, "Yes, I do." Yeah, I think I absolutely have to.
Every cafe is cycling themed, as you can imagine, and so it's right up my street.
Sounds good, mate. Actually, the other thing that I went to yesterday was a big launch event for Sub7 and Sub8, as we're about to talk about in the news. We've the venue and everything's been announced. So I went to a launch content strategy thing around it. Man, I tell you what, this is going to be like talking through the details of the broadcast and everything. Man, it's going to be epic. So let's get into it this week, because as we just said, Sub7, Sub8 date, TV details, course, and rules have been announced. This summary comes from Tri 24/7 John Levinson. Although, to be honest, I can probably talk about this because me and you have known about this stuff for quite some time. We're finally able to talk about it, which is exciting. The event is going to take place on the weekend of June 5th and 6th. with the exact time is to be confirmed. Now, the reason there are 2 dates, I saw somebody ask this on Instagram, is that they've got 2 dates, the Sunday and the Monday, as a backup. They've got the Monday as a backup day in case on the Sunday the weather conditions aren't right.
It's a weather window, isn't it?
Sorry?
It's a weather window.
Correct. So in case it's bad conditions, too windy, whatever, they'll opt for the second day, and then if it's bad, they just have to do it in the bad weather.
I mean, it's going to be a nerve-wracking time for those for all of us involved, really, isn't it? Because running up to it, 2 days of bad weather is not unknown.
Exactly. In Europe, mate, especially.
Yeah,
The venue is the Xterra Lausitz which is a famous motor racing circuit located near Klowitz in the state of Brandenburg in northeast Germany. It lies near the borders of Poland and the Czech Republic. So Lausitz is Speedway. It's a test facility. I think it's a 5.8 kilometer loop. It looks so cool. Chris was out there last year when he was sourcing the venue. I remember he was sending us photos and stuff from there and like saying like, this is seriously fast. I think they had somebody went out there and did a lap just on his own. He was riding like 48k an hour or something on the roads. Like it's built for speed. It's where a lot of the car companies will actually do their testing. So it's like the confidential cars and stuff that go out there to test is epic. Like this is a place built for speed. So it's going to be really, really good. It's going to be streamed globally. The more details are coming. I know that they're working a lot around the broadcast, how that's going to work, but it's going to be available for everybody to watch live, as well as packages pre and post and all that sort of stuff. So it's going to be epic. And then here we go, the rules. So each athlete can pick up to 10 paces to aid them on the race day, and they can be deployed however the athletes see fit across the 3 disciplines. Drafting is allowed, with the biggest gains for athletes expected on the bike leg, with significant help provided by the paces. There are no restrictions on bike equipment to be used, other than no mechanical propulsion is permitted. The athletes are expected to confirm their final team laps by the end of February. Now, about the technology, James, we have also heard a bit about some of the stuff that's been developed. And I think we heard something like there's some product that could take like 27% more efficiency and stuff. Like there's crazy tech that's going into this by the brands that are supporting it. And I think it's going to really surprise some people about the technology that's going into this attempt. Which is really cool. Like again, being on the other side of it, sort of like discussing with those brands and working around the storytelling, it's really cool, mate, to see what's coming with it.
Because the level of exposure is going to be far and above anything that triathlon generally sees, isn't it? Because yes, we've got the PTO tour coming up, which is going to be broadcast and pushed hard, but up until this point, most triathlon racing has either been short course stuff, which you have to really hunt down and find to watch, or Ironman stuff. And yes, that gets exposure out for the age groupers who buy all the gear, but this is going to have a level of broadcast exposure that triathlon hasn't really seen to this point. So for brands to get involved and up their game is quite the opportunity.
The other thing that came out of and this is something that I know that internally we've started talking a lot about more, and we've sort of started to realize, I think, in the last few weeks, is our focus has shifted a little bit. Like myself especially, I think I've really started to come to think of this event. Like we all think about the battle. I've seen a lot of the questions. We've all asked them, who's going to win? Christian, Ali, Lucy, Nicola. I think we've always thought about this event as a head-to-head mono match race. And what I've come to realize after speaking with Chris last week on the podcast and all the conversations we have off, just in our other world as working for the company, I really think this is a team event, mate. The more I think about it, this really has become a team event for me. And I've become so much more interested in the paces. Because I think if you were if you were to put Alistair up against Christian, I think Christian would win. If you were to put Nicola up against Lucy, I think Lucy would win. And it's almost like that experience versus youth thing, because Christian and Lucy are the young guns.
Outthinking the big Russian, in Rocky IV.
Yeah. And this is exactly how I think it's going to go now. I genuinely think we're going to see Alistair is the smartest. He's got the best race brain, I think, of any athlete in the sport. And I've stolen that from Chris. I've heard Chris say it enough times that I agree with it now. But I really think Alistair is a sort of athlete who will pick a team that will nullify any perceived advantages that Christian has. And we've heard what Chris said about Nicola last week, is Nicola is banking her run. We've heard people are asking how quick Nicola can run. I think it's a 2:37 marathon. That's her. She's a 2-time marathon champion compared to Lucy, which we'll talk about later, who I think ran a 2:47 at London a few weeks ago. Nicola is convinced that if she can close that gap on the bike through her paces, she will outrun Lucy every day of the week. Like, I'm really curious to see how paces and who they get are going to affect this event, because I think that's the thing no one's thinking about, and I think that's the potential for some really, really exciting storytelling and the way the paces are going to work and everything. It's going to be really cool, and something that I think people were very angry about the paces, and I think it's actually adding, and it's why I want to see team racing, because I think it's going to add this whole other element to the event that we've never seen before, and I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, totally. The pacer element on the bike. I mean, I've been banging on about this for as long as we've been talking about this. The intricacies, the difficulties, the underestimation of how difficult pacing a well-oiled team time trial is, even to the points of where someone sits, what wheel someone sits on. And when you go down that rabbit hole and you start thinking about how difficult that is, then you bring the personalities into it of who you choose, how well they work together, how enthusiastic they are, how motivated they are, whether they're just coming along for a payday like a session musician, or whether they're actually sort of invested in the athlete that they are working for and a part of that sort of real drive to succeed. And I've spent some time with one of the pacers of late, and I've seen that drive, and I'm pesting for it, mate.
Yeah, I'm really, really amped for it. Now let's continue on. So the course, the swim will take place in Lake Seftenberg, which is a 1,300 hectare man-made lake, which is 10 kilometers away from Xterra Lausitz. The size of the lake facilitates a straight point-to-point swim course to minimize turns and maximize speed. The men and women will begin at different times, delivering 2 separate head-to-head races. I think they're an hour apart. So the idea is they'll get to the finish line roughly around the same time, they hope. The bike course. From Lake Seftenberg, the athletes will navigate the 10-kilometer course, taking advantage of prevailing and historical wind conditions on fast, open German roads to blast onto the Lausitzring 5.85-kilometer test oval, which is the main course for the bike and run leagues. The test oval, which has long, straight stretches and no dead or slow speed turns, will enable the athletes' support teams to swap in and out with ease. The potential for significant gains is greatest over the 180-kilometer bike league. The athletes will need to achieve an average pace of 45 to 50 kilometers an hour, which is similar to that of a Tour de France time trial stage. Put into context, the men's UCI hour record is 55 kilometers an hour and the women's is 48 kilometers an hour, or distance. The run course will be conducted completely within the Xterra Lausitz high-speed oval, with athletes running in an anti-clockwise direction on the 5.85 kilometer loop. The track provides easy entry-exit of the support athletes during the race, and the closed venue ensures no risk of disruption to the race. Like the bike leg, the run course is looped with no dead or slow speed turns. All distances are going to be laser measured to ensure they are exactly correct. It's going to be fucking epic, mate. And that's the thing that we've sort of been trying to have those conversations. Is like, no, they're going to be able to swap paces in and out. They're not going to have to, you're not going to have to ride 180 kilometers. You can take 40K turns. You can take 10K turns. You can run 5K, take a break. You can do, there's so much more to this than simply having to have 10 other Ironman athletes. It's why suddenly, Lucy having all English team, she could have short course athletes. She could have GTB. She could have Jess Lemont. She could have those short course people who might not have the stamina for 180K, but they might have 100K or they might have 50K broken up over 4 hours.
It's really interesting watching them try and crack the code, isn't it? How it's going to play out, because the 4 teams won't be talking to 2 teams men, 2 teams women, won't be talking to each other. So they may turn up on race day and do totally different things.
I hope they do.
Yeah,
they will.
So it's going to be intriguing to watch that play out. So they've got the swim is 10K away, so they've got to finish the swim. They've got a 10K ride to the oval. And then they ride the loops around the oval. So that in itself is going to be interesting in terms of wind speed, wind direction. How that first 10K goes before they get into that enclosed, slightly more sheltered racetrack environment.
I was in one of the meetings, course planning meetings around that 10K, and I'm not joking. We had 12 different options, and we had people go out there. They were measuring the wind. They were looking at the road surface. This is not just oh, that'll do. Oh, that's roughly the right distance. Because the fact that it was looped, we were able to look at all the different options and work out what was going to be the fastest, the easiest for them to maintain the highest speed, and then just know we just have to alter the number of laps inside the circuit based on which route they went, making sure that the wind is favorable and everything. This, no stone is being left unturned with this. And mate, it's great to be able to talk about it, to be honest. Many people have been hitting us up going where is it? And I can't say. Although I used to say.
I was sat in a cafe in Girona before this was announced, and somebody was like, "So where's it going to be?" And I was just like, "I don't know, mate."
You know what I used to do? I used to go, I can't tell you, but if you were to check Chris's Instagram account, you may find some hints as to where this, because Chris posted this like 6 months ago without even realizing. He's like, it doesn't say where it is. It's like, Chris, it says Dekra, like right across the back of your phone. You idiot. Anyway, we'll move on because we are not a sub. We're not a Sub7 Sub8 podcast. Although some may think we are because we talk about. But this could be excited about it. But the next thing I want to talk about, we're going to go complete other direction, mate. We're actually going to step away from triathlon a little bit. There's still a hint of triathlon involved, and I got this little summary from Rumi Schoenveld from Try Today, and that's that Braden Curry wins Coast to Coast. Now, for people who don't know, Coast to Coast is one of the most iconic events in New Zealand. It is this crazy multi-stage race that literally goes from the west coast of the South Island, New Zealand, to the east coast of the South Island, New Zealand in a day. And I think if you do the 1 day race, it's called the longest day. It's a 243-kilometer event. But let's go to the article. Ironman New Zealand may have been postponed, but it didn't stop Braden Curry from challenging himself with a tough race. No long-distance triathlon, but the coast-to-coast longest day turned out to be a rough event, as the name suggests. It leads from one side of New Zealand to the other, and total athletes did to cover 243 kilometres, running, cycling, and kayaking through rural New Zealand. It's already Curry's 4th time winning the event, but it had been a while since he last participated. He last won the race in 2015. Now, apparently this year, he only had 36 hours to prepare for the event, James, because he was meant to be doing Ironman New Zealand, which got postponed for COVID, which is crazy. But he said, I laughed a lot today. I really didn't know when I'd ever get the chance to do this race again. Stoked it was today, he wrote on social media. So his splits, he needed 6:56 to complete the first 2,200 meters of running. He did a 1:29.57 for 55 kilometers of cycling. He ran 33 kilometers in 3 hours, 5 minutes, and then 2 hours 52 for 115 kilometers cycling. He kayaked 30 kilometers in 1 hour 41, and finally biked another 15 kilometers in 28:41. So that's what they do. They run, they ride. Sorry, they run, they ride, they run, they kayak, they ride. The logistics of it are mind blowing. And apparently, if you've ever seen the footage, if you guys are playing along at home, Google the kayak shots from coast to coast because it looks incredible. Like it's got to be one of the like Lord of the Rings style shit, mate. You know, with the mountains either side of you and everything. Like this is an event that I'd love to do. Like this is a bucket list event for me someday.
Let's go and do it. If New Zealand will ever let anybody back in again, we should go and do it.
Exactly. If we're ever allowed. But that's 100%. I will do this race before I die. Like that is 100% something that's on my list.
I didn't think this would interest you, Mr. Ford.
Really?
You know, I thought the spectacle would interest you, but other people doing it, I can't.
No, I'd love to.
I don't have you down as an adventure race type of person. I thought you were just 70.3, nice bit of tarmac. Thanks very much. See you later.
No, I've always liked the South Island, New Zealand. I've been there. I think I went there once when I was young, and it's one of the most spectacular places on the planet. And like I said, you just Google kayaking coast to coast, and you'll want to do this race. Like it looks phenomenal. It's not a place for fast times, but it'd be pretty epic. But speaking of fast times, Jimbo, we're back to Sub7, Sub8. Even though we took it, I noticed that I put that article in between to break it up.
Because I'd gone. The flow for me was important, and I was like, oh, he's going off course.
Breaking it up a little bit.
Yeah, we go. Back to Sub7, Sub8.
Now, we got this from Tri Magazine Canada, Kevin McKinnon, one of the greatest. Can Lucy Charles-Barclay go 7:21 for a full distance triathlon? Now, before we read this, James, it was probably 6 months ago that Lucy was saying that she wanted Frodo's record. And it sounds like that may not be enough for Lucy Charles-Barclay because now she wants Christians. And I fucking love it.
I love it.
So,
too.
Lucy Charles-Barclay expressed, she says that she doesn't just want to break the 8-hour barrier at the event. She wants to match Christian Blumenfeld's 7:21 from Ironman Cozumel last November. She said, for me, the climate is really important as it will allow for an incredibly fast bike leg where the most amount of time can be saved. The calm water swim will also create an opportunity to start the challenge in the best possible way, fast. And that is what I want to do. So I can not only beat Sub8, but also match the current men's time of 7 hours, 21 minutes. Charles-Barclay appears to be throwing the focus on Sub8 right now at the window. She wants to go almost an hour faster than Wellington's record-setting effort in Roth. In Cozumel, Blumenfeld went 39.41 thanks to the current-assisted swim, finished the bike in 4 hours, 2 minutes, 40 seconds, and then ran a 2:35.24. Now, this is where Kevin breaks it down for his Jimbo. So we're going to do a bit of we're not going to do it. Kevin has done the analysis for it.
We don't do the work, mate.
We don't do the work. We don't do the heavy lifting, mate. Again, go to Triathlon Magazine Canada, give them a click, give them a follow. It is a great way to keep up to date with what's happening in triathlon. But here we go. He says, as a good runner, as Charles-Barclay is, she's only broken a 3-hour barrier in a full distance race a couple of times. She went 2:59.32 in Ironman South Africa in 2019 and 2:59.42 in Challenger Roth the same year. No matter how much she's improved, though, it's hard to imagine that Charles-Barclay has a 2:35 in her. Last October, she ran the London Marathon in 2:47. So after a 3.8 swim and a 180k bike, even if she's able to draft, a 2:50 marathon would seem to be a reasonable goal. Now, what do you think about that, mate? We'll have interjections and some discussion before we keep going.
Yeah, no, totally. I think there's a lot to be said for that. She's improved on the run considerably. We know that, but going for the run is a difficult thing to take a huge amount of time off, because you can't. She's an incredible swimmer. It's hard to see her sort of making huge gaps in the swim compared to what she could already do. So she's already, I think, at that level with the swim, which there's not much improvement to be found there. The run itself, there probably is improvement to be found, but it's not something that she's going to be able to improve in this short period of time to make that sort of difference to match Blumenfeld, which I think leans heavily on the bike then. And the bike is where the improvements can be found. Now, we'll talk about that a bit later in this, because, we know that when you're pacing in a team time trial environment, if you do it right, the gains can be there, but they're hard gains to go after.
Now, there's a few things about this I find interesting, is that the times they're referring to are from, 2.5 years ago at this point, 2019 is when they're referring to those Ironman run splits. And we know that London Marathon, we reported on this podcast, she wasn't, it's not like she's going out there.
It was a jolly.
She ran a 1:18 at St. George off the bike after leading the entire race off the front. So if you double, it's 2:36. Add whatever, we're talking probably 240-ish, roughly. I think that we talk about she can't. You said she can't make up that. I think she might have been making up these improvements over the last 6 months, to be honest. And I just don't think we've seen her deliver it in a marathon. I believe that if Lucy Charles-Barclay is coming out and making these sort of statements, there's a reason for it. You know what I mean? She's not gonna go out there. She's smart, mate. She gets it. She is very savvy. Lucy's not going to come out there and go, I'm going to go 7:21 and then go 7:55 and go, oh, whoops.
No, I agree with you. I
I'm referring to the article more. Yeah.
I fully think 7:21 is if she's saying she's going to do it, she's going to do it. Or she
I'm agreeing with you. I'm more saying that I think the article maybe is I feel like it's using data that maybe isn't the best way to view it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. 2-year-old marathon splits, and referencing her London Marathon at 2:47.58, where she went out and had a job. I mean, 2:47.58 for me and you would be, unreal. But she went and had a jolly. Yeah, we'll see. She went and had a jolly at that pace. And so what I'm saying is I think she'll go faster than that, mate. I think a 2:40 is not out the window, but what I think the bigger gains will be found on the 100%. Bike.
Well, let's go on to it. So where does that put a 7:21 goal? As a former national team swimmer, Charles-Barclay is hands down one of the best swimmers in the sport. Her biggest challenge for the swim leg is going to be finding someone, let alone a group of someone, to pull her along. There just aren't a lot of people who can swim that fast. If she finds some swim types who can help, let's assume she can finish the swim in 39 or 40 minutes, the same time that Blumenfeld went. I think the swim is, I think she's going to probably be in the low 40s.
Yeah, totally. Even if she does find some people to pace alongside her, I don't think she needs benefit from it. Yeah, exactly. It just is.
I know that somebody commented on our YouTube saying who can keep up with Lucy Charles-Barclay, and they said Lucy Hall. I was like, that's a good shout.
Yeah.
But I'm 100% sure that Lucy Hall will not be pacing Lucy Charles-Barclay.
I think it would just be company. Okay, I see what you're saying. It would just be company for her rather than an improvement gain.
So, yeah, I think the swim, whatever, it'll be pretty close. And then that brings us to the bike. If she's going to make up about 15 minutes on Blumenfeld based on a particular 2:50 marathon, that means she'll need to do a 3:47 bike ride. To do that, she'll need to average 47.6 kilometers an hour. Charles-Barclay went 4:38 in Kona in 2018, riding all by herself. That's an average of just under 39 kilometers an hour. She'll need to go almost 9 kilometers fast in Germany in June. As crazy as that sounds, with the right people in front of her, that could be an attainable goal. Does sitting in a pack provide 25% advantage? If so, that would be pretty much bang on for her to hit the 47.6 k an hour.
And
average.
it's not just the pack that's going to bring that advantage, is it? Because 39 kilometers an hour across Kona on your own is, without the pack, she's going to be quicker on her own.
She's a better rider now, mate, to be honest.
She's a better rider. Plus, she's going around a racetrack that isn't Kona, doesn't have the winds, doesn't have the heat. So it's a different melting pot. She's going to go faster anyway. So she doesn't need that 25% from riding in a pack. She needs a final percentage from riding in a pack.
The other thing as well, I think if you look at all 4 of the athletes who are doing this, Lucy is the obvious weakest bike handler. All 3 of them have got gold medals. Like, they've got that short course pedigree that Lucy's still developing. And this is a course where you don't need bike skills. Like, you need the bike skills of riding in a pack, but it's not technical. It's literally a long straight line with the slow loop. So I think that will suit Lucy really, really well. And I think technology's improved in the last 4 years. That was 2018. 4 years of technological improvements.
As long as she's put the efforts and improvements into, forget technical bike handling skills, focus on the team time trial element. Focus on how to maximize that. Because if you
I'm curious who she gets. I'm so curious who she gets as her pacing. Like, Lucy's pacing team is the one that I'm like super fascinated by, actually, because how's she going to do it, mate? Like, is she going to find some swimmers? It's going to be cool. So Sub8, a no-brainer. If we're saying that 7:21 could be Charles-Barclay's wheelhouse, going under 8 hours should be a no-brainer. There are a few provisos to all this. About a month before Sub7, Sub8, she'll be looking to take her first Ironman World Championship race in St. George, and that'll be a tough course, and she'll have to push her limits. Now, when I spoke to them recently, they were talking about how much attention they give in to recovery in between those 2 races. Like, that's the other thing. They're 100% going after St. George, but I also think they're probably going to use that like preparation. I trust them. Like, they've got Dan Lorang, the master.
A month. It's a month as well. It's nigh on a month between events. I don't particularly see the recovery from that being an issue. If she'd done Ironman World Championships, then if she'd done a few races with month recoveries in between leading up to the World Champs, then I see the accumulated fatigue being an issue. But they've, like you say, they've got combined knowledge between them and the coaching expertise of Dan. It's who are we to question? Again,
I just love that she's coming out putting these statements out there. Like, I love that it's a bit more aggressive. It's not just like, I just want to see how good I can go. I'm just going to try to do my best. Like, it's like, no, I want to do that. I like it. I like it.
So do I. And I like the fact that Sub7, Sub8 is very clean, because as a marketing title for the project, it's very clean. But I like the fact that the women's side of the race from Lucy has gone, that's all right. Sub8, fine, but I'd like to link what I'm trying to do to show that I can go in the right conditions as fast as the fastest man has across the Ironman distance.
Can you imagine how upset people would be if she does it? Can you imagine the same people that complained about Christian?
It doesn't count because it was pace.
I saw a comment.
Because I fully chalked it up as counting.
I saw a comment on one of these articles on Facebook today, and it was somebody like really butthurt going on about like, I can't believe you were given this coverage when it's fake record attempts because of the pacemakers. # not impressed. And I sat there like chuckling to myself for a good 30 seconds thinking, what smart ass reply could I give this? And I went, no, Tim, you don't argue with people on the internet. But I was this guy is going to be so upset.
But he's going to watch it, don't you? Just sit there
sitting there angry going, Jesus, she's going so fast. It's not triathlon. This is not fair. I love it. It's so good.
Very strange. I had this conversation with someone at the weekend, because the videographer we were using in Girona, triathlon's not his bag. Other sports are his bag. And we were talking about this, and I was taking him through the triathlon audience and how touchy because he was like, oh, what you could do for content at some point is get a pro triathlete to enter an amateur race like undercover and just beat everybody, and it would be interesting content. I was like,
Jesus, can you imagine?
I was like, that wouldn't go down well.
Oh my god.
I was like, mate, you need to come to terms with the triathlon audience before you start coming up with ideas like that.
Oh, it's amazing. Oh, that'd be hilarious. Oh, I actually want to see that now. We get Joe skipping a race with like a mustache and a pair of glasses.
Because I was like, he was like, wouldn't that just be really interesting, just to show the difference between, the pro and the age group? And I was like, no, there would be people at that race who were desperate to win it, and by rights, would then be like, oh, I've had it taken off me. But it would be the level of butthurtery would be bigger than it deserves.
The other thought though, James, is you could probably get a whole bunch of pros who could do that, and they still would lose to the age groupers. Yeah. So like that's the other. That wouldn't be such a good look. But look, let's actually move away from Sub7 now. Let's move on. And we're just going to briefly touch on the fact, this is just, again, Triathlon Magazine Canada. Xterra is starting to rotate its global championships. It's always been held in Hawaii. This year, I think it is going to be the first time it's been held in Trentino in Italy.
Yeah.
Yeah, October 1st, 2022. It's the first time it's going to be held outside of Maui in Italy. They say our vision is to rotate Xterra Worlds through all continents from Europe to Asia, Africa, and the Americas, says JD Cousins, Xterra Vice President of Operations and Global Marketing. This will allow our wonderful sport to reach uncharted territories, welcome new warriors into our global community, and provide a wide variety of endurance challenges to our athletes from around the world. I don't have a lot to say. I mean, just here it says, Maui is our birthplace we will return to one day, and we are forever grateful to our hosts. It was their spirit of venture that put Xterra on the map 2 decades ago, and it's the same spirit that's inspiring us into the future now. Yeah. I want to ask you about this, James.
Yeah.
Is this purely about rotation, or is this, again, because of what's happening in Hawaii, like we've discussed?
Yeah, it could well be, but
it's good. It's a good thing.
I put it in more for. I'm a big fan of rotation. Same. I'm a big fan of change. I'm a big fan of alternating.
What were we talking about just before, mate?
Yeah,
big fan of the history of the sport.
Yeah, alternating locations. If I had my way, we would have a different Ironman World Championship location every year, and it would be somewhere stunning and interesting. Then every 5 years, you could go back to Kona and have like the birthplace race, and then back
at Bale.James85. Everybody, just get your tweets directed at James. He's the one saying this.
I love it. So yeah, come at me. But and I love Xterra going at this as well, because I like the fact that as an audience member you get to see it in different places, but also as a consumer, there will be some race that comes along one year where you're like, well, this suits me better because I can get there easier, or I've always wanted to go there, or I'm going to do the Xterra World Championships this 1 year, and it's there, and it's going to be amazing, and I love that sort of thing.
Mate, the reason I'm on the same thing is because that was my experience. Like, I always saw 70.3 Worlds as an unobtainable thing for me. It was always in Las Vegas. I was young, I was studying. It was just like, I don't think I'll ever be able to go to Las Vegas to race. I'd love to, but it just doesn't seem achievable for me. And then they started rotating, and they announced in 2016 it was going to be in Australia at Sunny Coast, my favorite race in the world. Like, and it was like, I'm qualifying. I don't care what I have to do. I will qualify for that race. And I did. And I improved as an athlete. I went under 4:30 for the first time. I got to 4:20. Like, I was so motivated to qualify and race in that 70.3 race at home. My entire family came up. I had a group of like 20 friends there. It was one of the best experiences of my life. And it was because the race was in my country. And like, that's something that I reckon so many people get to experience. And that's the beauty of 70.3. And that's why I think this is a great thing for Xterra. And I think we're going to start seeing more and more of it, mate, to be honest, just because of the way the world is.
Yeah. We need to argue more. We agree on too much.
Mate, we need to get some we should get some. Every time somebody complains at us, we should invite them on the podcast to be the third.
I know.
And then we'll gang up on them.
No, I don't want Dean in his mum's basement sitting on the third camera.
We need to find a podcast that we don't agree with. We'll have to do like a head-to-head thing. That could be fun. There's plenty of them we don't agree with.
Yeah.
The next thing, I don't necessarily want to go into the news. I just think it's worth talking about, man. That's the fact that Katie Zafiris and Tommy Zafiris are expecting their first child. Again, congratulations. Absolutely amazing. Katie Zafiris is one of our absolute favorite athletes in the world. Seeing her win her bronze medal in Tokyo was incredible. And after the year they've had, it's really, really good to see that they've had this really positive piece of news. So again, I don't really feel
just wanted to put it in there just to remind us to say congratulations and enjoy the ride.
Good thing as well. We were talking with some people earlier this week. Katie's not old. She's young. That this, hopefully we'll see her have the baby, go away, come back, and start winning all the long cost stuff like we have predicted, mate. So
there you go.
do we have a bet about that as well? Do we have? I know we've got the Vince and Christian bet. Do we have a Katie and somebody bet? Katie and Lucy?
Yeah. No, we don't. No, the Vincent Christian bet. If Christian wins in Utah, I win that bet, don't I?
No, we said Kona.
Yeah, but I mean that was just an umbrella for World Championship.
Mate, I'm a lawyer. I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer, and we specifically said Kona, so it has to be Kona. Unfortunately,
does it have to be Kona?
Has to be Kona. Yeah.
Oh, that's annoying, isn't it? Because I would have if he had one in Utah.
He's a better chance in Kona than he has in St. George, mate. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I'm just saying.
Frodeno's good. Did you see Frodeno doing his
Utah, I'd have got you to buy me a race for the end of the year, probably Bahrain or something.
Tell you what, anyway. Frodeno's going to win St. George, mate. I reckon. Looking at that he was running hill repeats, looking good. He had his lactate monitor out the other day. It's Frodo, mate.
All right.
Frodo or Joe Skipper. They're my picks.
All right.
I think that's about it, mate. Quickly, one last thing. Geelong 70.3 happened this weekend. Some absolute superstars of Australian triathlon race, and we've got Ellie Salthass and the women up against Amelia Watkinson, who I know is not Australian. She's actually a Kiwi, but she's based here. Two incredible athletes. And in the men's race, we've got Steve McKenna going up against Josh Amberger, and Sam Appleton will be there. So it's going to be a fire. It's great to see 70.3 racing coming back to Australia, and good to see a pro race happening. I just wanted to touch on it. But you know what we're going to do, James? Let's jump to our interview, and we'll be back for the down low on the PTO.
We're lucky to be joined by Magnus Ditlev and Daniel Baekkegard. Did I pronounce that correctly, Daniel?
Sounds pretty accurate.
Did I do all right? Did I? All right, cool.
Yeah, well, I've heard some pronouncements, so I think that was one of the better ones.
These are the two powerhouses of Danish triathlon on the men's side. Magnus is currently ranked number 14 in the PTO rankings, following wins in Challenge Budvar, 70.3 Portugal last year, and podiums at Challenge Mallorca and Clash Daytona. Daniel's currently number 6 in the PTO rankings, following wins in 70.3 Lanzarote and 70.3 Dubai, and podiums at 70.3 World Champs, the Collins Cup, and Ironman Tulsa last year. So you both had pretty damn good years last year, boys. How are you both?
Oh, thank you for the cool introduction. I'm good. Yeah. And last year was quite good, but I think both Daniel and I can agree that there is a lot more to come from both of us.
Yeah, thanks a lot, James. As Magnus said, we had to show some pretty cool stuff next year, I think, this upcoming season. We've both been at the Club La Senza and Lanzarote to do some preparations together, and I think for the both of us, the shape are coming along pretty well. So very much looking forward to the upcoming season.
Yeah, so you've both just got back from a period of training in Lanzarote. How long were you out there for?
Yeah, so I was there for 4 weeks in total. And then we had 2 weeks together where we could do some pretty solid training. And I think you were the same, Magnus.
Yeah, I was there only 3 weeks, but yes, and it was actually the first time that we really trained together. So that was really cool to experience.
Yeah, and
not the last time, I hope.
No, definitely not the last time.
So is this you chaps? Is this a national association or a friendship, or have you known each other a long time? Where does it date back to, the sort of your coexistence?
So I was part of some of the kind of youth program from the junior side, and came into triathlon that way. And then now I'm kind of not the biggest part of the federation. And then I got to know Magnus because he kind of just came into the game and did very well from the beginning. And I think we kind of I feel like we had, it's very difficult when you are kind of from the same country, and as well you compete for the same championships and stuff. So sometimes it can be kind of difficult to have a friendship where you can train together, or but I really feel like with Magnus and me, we can really train together and respect each other's way of approaching training and life in general. So yeah, I think it's kind of it's a very good friendship, and I think there's a lot more to come in terms of training together. And we both have the same visions for our careers, the same goals and ambitions. So why not train together in order to achieve great things.
What's your take on things, Magnus?
Yeah, so I got into triathlon quite late, so I wasn't through any federation stuff, and we don't still get a lot of support from them. They more focus on short course. So as Daniel say, it's like I think we've found each other since we're both like performing on the same level, and I believe, as he says, that we not only share the same visions, but also like the same approach to training, and how we train is quite similar. So I found that it was a really natural fit to start training together. Sometimes when you get a new training buddy, there can be a lot of like measuring the size.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was quite different, and I feel like we respected each other for the work we both do and the strengths we have. So it was I'm really looking forward to continue this journey.
And is there a healthy competition? I mean, where do your strengths and individual weaknesses and strengths sit alongside each other when you're training? Are you finding that you can do sessions at a similar level, or is there a moment where sometimes someone's a better swimmer and you push each other in different ways?
It's kind of strange, because we're both world class, as you say, number 6 and number 14. So we're our overall level is very similar. Of course, there's some slight changes in level on some stuff, but 95% of the stuff we have is in between margins. So
yeah,
of course we can train together and do almost all of our sessions together, at least at the same time. And both of us are pretty dedicated when it comes to intensity control. So that's actually one thing I found pretty nice training with Magnus, the fact that when you train with other guys, they can tend to go out pretty hard or not really stick to their game plan or their training session in order to just go all out or compete in sessions or whatever. And that's where it's very easy with Magnus, because we know we have similar levels on all three disciplines, kind of. So we can do all the sessions together, and there's no really unhealthy competition within the sessions. So that means that it's very easy to plan a session and do it together. And just
yeah, and it's more like also just helping each other through a session, instead of, sometimes I've experienced that if I maybe have a bad day or is a bit tired, then one mate might try to like to kill me even more, whereas I think we try to like get each other through together and not just see who's the best guy on the day.
Yeah,
save that for the competitions.
Putting your egos aside type thing, and focusing on the bigger picture rather than the individual moment. I suppose that comes alongside being at a similar level, as opposed to sort of were you training with someone who was trying to prove themselves to either of you, then a moment's weakness, people can try and jump on that.
Yeah, and also at the same time, the fact that we both understand that we have to perform on race day and not in training sessions. Like we have to do the work in training sessions, but it all comes down to race day, and that can be in some strange way that can be very difficult for a lot of guys to actually understand.
Yeah, but I think that if, for instance, if you saw me 2 years ago, I might not have been as as disciplined as I feel like I am now. So I think, as you say, James, it all comes down to, like, we both know that we have a really good level and we have a shot at beating everyone on the biggest stage. So it's much easier to like rest in your own plans, and yeah.
So let's, before we start talking about last year and we start talking about the plans ahead, let's throw a bit of unhealthy competition into it then. So if there was a full distance race tomorrow, how would you go about beating each other? And I'm going to start with Daniel. What would your approach be, mate, if you had to line up on your own tomorrow? You and Magnus. Where would you attack?
Where would I attack? I think
from the gun, mate. From the gun.
Yeah, I always do that, so that's pretty easy. Of course, I would attack on the swim, and then I would try to get a healthy lead. Then we'll see. Magnus would probably catch up at some point on the bike, and then we would go head to head on the run. I think that's yeah. I think that's where it comes in. Obviously, I have a couple of long distance races already under the belt, so maybe I have a idea, a kind of a better idea of the last 10 kilometers on the run. But yeah, you never know. So
how would you counter that, Magnus? What would your game plan be, mate?
I think first of all, not to collapse out at around 30 kilometers, and then I think there would be a very decisive moment on the bike when I would catch Daniel, hopefully, and if I either like manage to get a gap or he's able to ride with me, that would probably decide a lot of the outcome.
Do you find, question for you, Magnus, do you find that, because looking at the coverage of races when you're racing, let's say at Clash Daytona, when you're racing with Blumenfeld, your height gives an impression that you're not moving as fast as you are. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I also when I see the coverage afterwards, I feel like I move much faster than how it looks, but I guess that's especially on the run. I think that I have pretty long legs, so my cadence is not the highest. It might look a little slow sometimes, but yeah.
You're still shifting, eh?
Especially the footage where Christian is overtaking me, that that looks pretty fun. He probably is doing 30 strides more per minute than I am.
Yeah, you did look a bit like a hummingbird, didn't he?
Yeah.
That day. But so tell me, talking about Clash Daytona, Magnus, let's start with you, mate. Tell me about last year. What went well? What do you look back? Is there anything you look back on and think I could have done that differently?
Yeah, there is a lot of I think one of the biggest frustrations for me was getting sick 2 weeks prior to 70.3 Worlds. It's not really something I feel like I could have done differently, but that definitely hindered my performance in St. George. But there was a lot of good takeaways, I think. Like if you see the progression throughout the season, then especially my run seemed to get a lot more stable on the off bike running. I always feel like I have I have felt that I have quite a good like pure running level, but managed to convert it into running off the bike in competitions. But I think that especially the 3 competitions I did back to back in October was some really good running from my part. It wasn't quite at the level in Daytona, but I think that I got directly from a 3 weeks camp where I was all alone for 3 weeks in Club La Santa, and then I traveled directly to Daytona, and it was like the end of the season. So I was training really really hard towards the last race, and I think that in the competition that I just had maybe burned a bit too many matches like throughout the season and in the camp being alone all the time, and so I didn't feel at my best in Daytona, but still managed to get second. So that was also, yeah.
And what was your highlight from last year? What was the moment where you were like, banging?
There was a lot of. I think one of the coolest experience from my side was actually the race in St. George earlier in the year, where Daniel also was a part. Where I had a lead getting off the bike, and then Sam Long and Daniel and Lionel Sanders, they caught up to me at around 14 kilometers, and then we ran a few kilometers together until the wheels fell off on the last hill. But that was it was a really cool. I think you need to have been there to really understand how the tension was, and there was not a word between any of us, and Talbot Cox was riding on the side screaming that he was doing a live stream with really a lot of attention going on. So it was just a really cool experience.
Same question to you, really, Daniel, mate. Where were your highlights of last year, and where were moments you think, is there anything you look back on and think, I wish I'd changed this or done that differently?
There's we can start with the stuff I would like to change. I had a encounter with the vaccine that I would maybe change a bit the approach going into having the vaccine and then training afterwards. That was definitely, it took a lot out of me that I did not really expect, and I felt like I felt terrible for actually until December. I got it in August, and the severe fatigue, as Magnus also described, it was a long season, and then when I stopped training in, I think it was November, it was like, for the first time in my life, I did not want to move out of the bed at all, not going out for a jog or anything. And normally it's like I can sit for 40 minutes a day, and then I have to move, or I cannot really sit still. So it was very strange. And I think obviously a lot of competitions, but also the vaccine is kind of underrated when it comes to the fatigue from a season. And then the season highlight, there's a lot of them. As Magnus also mentioned, the St. George race was very cool. Just running there in complete silence on a mountain, and then as Magnus said, you had to be there in order to feel it. Like that was pretty crazy. And then as well, to be a part of the Collins Cup, that was I think it was a very good job PTO did, and I think it's a very interesting concept that hopefully both me and Magnus will be a part of next year. So that was two things that really comes to mind when it comes to race highlights.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean about the vaccine decision, because I did the same thing. I took my vaccine and then just plowed on with training, and about 4 days later it was game over for me, for longer than it should have been. I think a sensible person would have sat down and seen what had happened before just cracking on. But we live and learn, don't we?
Yeah, exactly.
So Danish triathlon, tell me about it. What's the scene like over there? Are you guys, are you seeing a groundswell of grassroots participation off the back of what you're doing? Do you think what you're doing is having an impact?
I think a small impact, but actually we're just a small part of what's actually going on. I think we had some years ago, we had our former sports director and the national coach was very vocal about the possibility of racing middle distance, because of us being pretty, we have a how do you say it, like there's a lot of Danish guys who have been very good, strong bikers. So they were kind of vocal about moving to the middle distance scene, and I think that's kind of, it's a thought that changed a lot. And then then we had a change in federation, in the leaders, and now it's kind of terrible what's going on. But I think it's the only country in the world where it's actually harder to do well on the middle and long distance scene than it is on the short distance scene. So that's I think that's pretty cool and that's maybe a small part that we can take credit for, Magnus and I. But I think we have a lot of people coming up. The squad Magnus is a part of that's kind of one small part. We have some clubs in Denmark, of course, that is pretty big, and then we have smaller communities where people train together, and I think that's kind of a very healthy way of doing it. Not only being a part of a club, but also being part of a kind of a squad vibe, I would call it, where we have guys like Magnus and I and Christian Høgenhaug, who kind of can show the younger generation how to approach a career.
What's your take on the national scene, Magnus?
Yeah, I agree with Daniel. Right now, it's like, if we look at how it's structured, then in Denmark we have like 3 elite centers, 3 different places in the country, and I'm part of the one in Copenhagen, and Daniel is in Odense, and then there is one in a town called Aarhus where Christian Høgenhaug is. And if we just look at the one in Copenhagen where I train, I believe we already have a few guys that are very close to like stepping onto the big scene. It's like, I feel like a lot of people actually have if you look at the numbers and the level and training and stuff, probably more than 5 guys will be able to train with Daniel and I for almost all our sessions. But one thing is the training numbers and stuff, which I believe a lot of people have. It's much more difficult when you get out in the big races and proving, and I think that it just takes a long time. Also for me, it took some time to figure out how can I use my strength in the races and stuff. So I think that the Danish triathlon is in a really good place if you're looking at the middle distance and long distance races.
And do you find, in terms, like you say, you've got 4 or 5 guys who can train with you at your level, do you always need to train with people at your level? Do you ever mix it up and go out with people who aren't at your level? Because I've just got back from a weekend in Girona with Joe Skipper, and he trains with people who are all over the place, and he's going out for a 200-something kilometer bike ride, and he's dancing up and down mountains while they do the climb once, and then do you mix it up like that, or is it as you always want to play?
We definitely mix it up. I mean, this morning I was at swim practice in the club, and we have elite lanes, but all of the time we train together, at least for the club sessions. We train with also all the age groupers in the club, and so there is a lot of mixing it up, and it's most in the swim. I think it's a lot more, especially on the run. It can be difficult as like our easy pace might be, or a lot of people's hard paces, but on the bike and swim, it's really cool to mix it up and talk to different persons. Also, not just talking about elite triathlon all the time, but also people that actually have a real life and a job.
So this year that's coming up, we've got the announcement of the PTO Tour. That means we've got 2 Ironman World Championships, 1 70.3 World Championships, the Collins Cup, 2 PTO Tour races, and obviously from our perspective, we've got Sub7, Sub8 happening as well. So how do you as athletes look at a year like that with the complexities and, the dates and the races you've got to go and target? How do you start to plan a year like that?
Yeah, first of all, you don't have to plan for any additional races, I guess. You just have to, you just have to be there when it counts. And, of course, it can be a bit difficult to, you also need some time in between races to train and actually get better. But I think it's a very cool way the whole triathlon scene structured as it is right now. Of course, 2 long distance world championships is maybe a bit much, but for guys like me and Magnus who are primarily focusing on 70.3, then I think it's pretty cool to have a selected few races where everybody will show up, and you have to be there at 100% in order to just be in a mix. And that's what I like. You see from the WTS that vibe of everybody being there. That's just awesome, and I hope to have that at the championship races as well, or more championship races.
Yeah, Magnus, do you look at the season and think, well, I'm going to peak for that race and I'm going to peak for that race? Or is it more of an approach of kind of keeping yourself at a high level and then just recovering in between races?
I think like peaking for an event is it's not as a lot of people say this. Like you don't like now I'm in peak shape and then afterwards then I'm not in shape. I think our levels throughout the season is actually very close to each other the whole season. So, but naturally I have some events that have my main focus, and that's also maybe even most for a mental part, that it can be really hard to be 100% focused throughout the whole season. So I have, for instance, 70.3 Worlds is a really big goal of mine. So right now we are very careful about just training plus 40 hours a week. We know that 70.3 Worlds is a long way from now. So I think for me, as I really love to train and I can train a lot and I can tolerate a lot of training, it's mostly about not doing too much at the moment, because what we learned from last year, that maybe I was a little bit too tired at the end of the season. So we want some freshness, mostly also for the head, I think, to keep the really hard work for the biggest one.
So do you, looking at the emergence of the PTO and the PTO Tour, do you think that takes any shine off the existing races, the 70.3 Worlds and the Ironman Championships and stuff? Or do you think it will just coexist nicely and makes triathlon a better place for us all to be in?
Better place, no doubt.
Yeah. That's the answer I was hoping for.
I think the only problem right now is the fact that Kona is just before 70.3 Worlds, because I think personally I'm going to have a problem with only 3 weeks or so in between. It's the fatigue will maybe you have to be in very good shape in order to race both at a high level. So PTO, I think they do a fantastic job in making the sport more professional and for people to actually want to watch a triathlon race online. I think it's awesome to have those kind of races, and it does not take anything away from any other races. I don't think so, at least.
What's your thoughts, Magnus, on the PTO and the involvement of the PTO?
Yeah, I agree with Daniel. It's really awesome to see the work they're doing, and I know we both wants to race against the best guys in the world as often as possible, and that's really what motivates us. So for us, it's a huge plus, and we are really happy that they are here. And yes, the Kona plus 70.3 Worlds will be. That will be difficult to handle.
Yeah, too right. So if you could, if both of you could pick one race to do well in this year, which one would yours be, Magnus?
I think 70.3 Worlds has a, maybe it's also because of the route and the history. It really it's an awesome course, and I love the town of St. George, and it's I don't know why, but it has a special place in my heart, at least.
What about you, Daniel?
I think actually the same.
Yeah.
I love racing.
Nice.
Yeah, 70.3 is like you have to go so hard, and there's like you just have to be all-rounded athlete in order to do well at 70.3 Worlds. So that's the race.
That's the race. So just out of interest, we got the Sub7, Sub8 challenge coming up later this year. They've announced the venue, they've announced the dates. What are your guys' thoughts on that? And has anybody approached you about pacing at all, by any chance?
I think they should have picked us instead.
Good answer, mate.
Then that would have been really cool.
Obviously, there are probably things that if conversations have taken place, there might be things you can't say, but I just thought I'd ask, put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, I don't really know. I don't really know what to say about that.
We're almost done. So one final question. So if that race that we're going to have tomorrow with you boys lining up on your own to do a full distance, who wins?
I do.
You got that in quick. So cheers,
dream about that.
So Magnus, let's start with you, mate. If people want to find out more about you and come and say hello, where do they look on the internet?
Just I'm mainly on Instagram, so that's the place. You can always message me, and then I will answer as quickly as possible. It's cool to engage with people. I have a lot of people like contacting me for very geeky stuff, and I love that. So,
what about you, Daniel? Where's best to come hunting for you, mate?
Yeah, Instagram as well. At Daniel Baekkegard. So fairly easy.
Cool. Well, thanks very much, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, and Daniel.
Well, that was good fun. That was good fun. Sorry, you froze.
I thought you were going to do the down low on the PT. I was waiting for you to do the down low on the PTO.
Your screen had frozen, so I was waiting for you to come back. It was just silence and a frozen.
Sure, I wasn't just staying.
No, it was beyond frozen. So yeah, that was an interesting interview, and welcome to the down low on the PTO. Mate, the PTO are on the upswing, aren't they? They've come from the depths of putting out some expensive race prices and everybody getting the shits with them, to slashing their race fees last week, which we were very, very pleased to see, and is a great move for what they're trying to do. And this week they have announced a PTO Tour referral scheme, which works in the following way. You enter a PTO Tour event and get your referral code. If you refer 3 friends/family to sign up for the same event, you get your full entry fee back after the race. So not only have they slashed their fees, they're also now giving away free entries to people. Now, if you've got a load of people who you know are going to enter the race, then this could work as a little divvy up thing, couldn't it? Because me, you, and 2 other people all enter together. We get one of the race fees back, and then we share the money out. I would do that.
I wonder, are we allowed to weaponize our audience for this too? Like me and you will enter, and then we'll put our codes out to our podcast listeners, and then they'll. That's how we need to. I'm just thinking about myself here, mate. I really like this. Again, one of the things we were quite vocal about was about bringing more people to the sport, and I think this is a good incentive to do that. Hope it works. I always think referral schemes, like if it's a little bit too complicated, they tend not to work. But yeah, again, really, really positive step. I think you can see that they're trying to not undo, but make it more accessible and get more people there, which is going to be good. So
Agreed. Has the chain come off your bike in the background?
No, there's no wheel on. I had it on the trainer before.
Oh,
So,
okay. Oh, yeah.
That's all it is. Yeah.
All right, sweet.
I couldn't be. I normally put the wheel back on, but I'm getting to that point with the race coming up in like a week and a half that I'm sick of looking at my bike, and I just got off the trainer today and just put. I was like, I don't care. I've noticed I've strategically placed my head in front of the wheel, so you can't really see it.
Nice.
Well, James, you know what? If you want to get more behind the scenes access, like finding out the wheel is on my bike or not, you can find out what's happening inside MX Endurance by heading to mxendurance.com/podcast. We can sign up for one of our podcast memberships for as little as $3.40 a month or $49 a year. Gives you access to all of our bonus episodes we've ever recorded. There's like 22 of them at the moment. There's more to come, one a month. They're fire. There's stuff said on those podcasts that we cannot share. It's like they announced the venue today, but MX members have known about the venue for probably a year at this point, considering Chris has been talking about it on every bonus episode we've done, talking about the paces, talking about stuff that people wish they knew. And all they needed to do is head to mxendurance.com/podcast, and they'd know too. Get partner discounts, access to our team of experts, a whole bunch of goodies, supports the podcast, gets us to races. I'm not going to keep it as long as last because you bullied me and you made me feel really self-conscious. So, James, I'm going to quickly say, if they want to find out other things about MX Endurance, what do they need to do?
If you want to find out more about MX Endurance, head to mxendurance.com or search MX Endurance on Facebook or at MX Endurance on Twitter or Instagram. If you want to follow me, I'm Bale at Bale.James85 on Instagram, or you can follow Team at T414 on Instagram. Jump onto iTunes, give the show a review. You can do it in the podcast app, really helps the show out. If you like what we're doing, tell a friend, help us grow the podcast. If you got any suggestions, guests, or comments, send an email to podcast@mxendurance.com.
Why do I find that so funny? You literally just coughed, and it's just like the funniest thing that's happened. Well, Jimbo, good luck. Good luck tonight. Again, I'm sorry that it's the second time you're interviewing Daniel that I've missed, actually. He must think I have a problem with him.
Yeah,
because
in an hour or so. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, it'll be too late for me, and I'll be tucked up in bed because I've got a big day of work and stuff tomorrow. Big run in there. I've got a brutal run tomorrow. It's like 15 3-minute efforts. Like,
oh, you lucky fucker! I can't wait to be able to run again. I tried to run in Girona, did that 5K at.
Got a fucking broken ankle, mate.
Yeah, I'm almost there, but it's just not almost.
Notice I just love how you find any opportunity to remind me and our listeners that you're in Girona. It's like, I'm surprised you don't have like a map of Girona
T-shirt.
or a virtual background. Like, you just got a big poster of Girona, put it in your background, and be like, "Hola, greetings from Girona." Oh, I'm not there. I was there. I went there. Like, I am disappointed to see no tan though. I thought you actually looked paler than you.
It was quite overcast, if I'm honest.
Well, there you go, Jim.
Most of the time.
James.
We were going to go. We were going to go We were going to go go-karting on the Monday.
Yeah.
Everybody, but it was so wet. We went bowling instead. So it was raining. It rained dramatically on the Monday.
So I saw that photo that Joe took at the bowling alley, and I noticed you weren't in it. Does that mean you took the photo?
No, we had. Because there were so many of us, we had to split the lanes. So that was their lane. They had the lane next to us.
So you didn't take the photo.
I won my lane, mate. I won my lane. I got a strike with the first ball. Strike with the first ball, just set the standard.
And it was all downhill from there, I bet.
Yeah, it really was. It really was.
A pleasure. Until next week, talk to you soon.
Cheerio.